The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development, with a platform and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives. At The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co. Dr. John DeMartini. Dr. John DeMartini is a world-renowned specialist in human behavior, a researcher, author, and global educator. He has developed a series of solutions applicable across all markets, sectors, and age groups. His education curriculum ranges from corporate empowerment programs, financial empowerment strategies, self-development programs, relationship solutions, and social transformation programs. His teachings start at the core of the issue, addressing the human factor, and range out to a multitude of powerful tools that have proven the test of time. He has studied over 30,000 books across all the defined academic disciplines and has synthesized the wisdom of the ages, which he shares on stage in over 60 countries. His presentations, whether keynote seminars or workshops, leave clients with insights into their behavior and keys to their empowerment. He is one of the speakers, presenters featured in the famous book, The Secret. My work with him. Well, I've had the opportunity to meet Dr. John DeMartini several times. I've interviewed him several times, and I've also attended some of his workshops and seminars. He did a talk for us at the Best You Expo. And what you get to understand with him, he is an extremely knowledgeable man. Very, very eloquent. He's probably one of the most intelligent men that I've met in my life. He is phenomenal. And obviously to have the opportunity to meet him and to see his work and see how he's managed to reach so many countries and impact the life of millions of people is just great to see. He's a very, very inspiring man. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy this interview. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Bernardo and welcome to Inspiring People. Today I have the great pleasure of interviewing John DeMartini, who is a behavior expert and also leading personal development and one of my favorite gurus. John, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Such an honor and pleasure. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your early years, and what was your school years like?
Well, I ended up in first grade with my first grade teacher telling my parents in a little reading circle that I'm afraid your son's got learning problems. He's never going to be able to read. He's never going to be able to write, never going to be able to communicate, never amount to anything, never go very far in life. I had some speech pathology problems and had dyslexia. And so I made it through elementary school with the help of the smartest kids by asking questions, which I'm kind of known for today by my questions. And I ended up moving from Houston, Texas to Richmond, Texas. And there I didn't have a group of smart kids around, and I didn't know who to ask questions to get through school, and I ended up dropping out of school. So when I was about 13, 14 years old, I left school and hit the streets and was kind of a vagabond hippie from the 60s at the time. And but I loved surfing as a sport, so I ended up hitchhiking out to California and staying there for a while and eventually making it to Hawaii to ride big waves and the North Shore of Oahu. I ended up nearly dying there. And after recovering from that, I was led to a little health food store. And from there on to a little class. And I met a gentleman one night in 1 hour with one message that touched my life very deeply. And he basically inspired me to think that maybe someday I could be intelligent. Someday I could overcome my learning problems. And that night I saw a vision and dream of being intelligent and learning how to read and eventually become a teacher. So that was about 43 years ago. And ever since that night, I had a dream to travel the world and teach. So here I am, 3 years later, practicing away, trying to do the art of teaching. So I'm a full-time teacher today.
And your teachers were wrong.
Well, the first grade teacher ended up, I think that was the perfect thing to be told, actually. I look back now and I'm grateful for that, because if I hadn't had that void, I may never have had this value.
And I suppose I have read, and I know you mentioned to me about this first encounter when you started learning yoga, and you started believing in yourself. Was this man an inspiration to you?
Well, Paul Bragg was an inspiration to a lot of people. I mean, Jack LaLanne was impacted by him. Donald Trump was impacted by him. Steve Jobs was impacted by him. Gloria Swanson, William Kellogg. I mean, I could go on the list. There's about 150 people that we all know the names of that were impacted by this one man. And I was blessed to be in his presence that one night and then get to study with him for 3 weeks. And what he taught me, I still use today. And he said that we're here to set goals for ourselves, our family, our community, our city, our state, our nation, our world, and beyond for 100 to 120 years. And I started doing what he told me. And I had dreams to travel the world and to be teaching. And I never gave up on the dreams. And I guess if you stay with something long enough, everybody else dies out and you end up at the top. You just got to stay with it.
I also have read that you've read over 29,000 books.
Yeah, I'm almost at the 30,000 mark now. I'm
Wow.
really close. And I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing than researching and studying and learning and trying to take what I learn and try to share it with other people. So I love to read. I can't think of anything else I'd rather do.
And I would obviously have questions I could be asking you for weeks, and I'm sure you could carry on giving me answers for every single one of them. But we'll start with a couple of subjects. Are we punishing ourselves with unrealistic expectations with our lives and what we expect or want?
Well, I believe that every human being lives by a set of priorities, a set of values that are unique to them. And when they're setting goals that are aligned and congruent and in perfect alignment with their highest values, they have a spontaneous inspiration to get up and fulfill them. They'll endure pain and pleasure in the pursuit of them. They love doing it, and they can't wait to get up in the morning and do that. And so they have the highest probability of achievement. But the second they set a goal that is not of the highest nature, the highest value, those that they've injected from the influences of people around them, people they may have envied or looked up to, and they've injected values that are not highest but are lower on their value list, they decrease the probability of having achievement. Because every decision a person makes is based on what they believe will give them the greatest advantage or disadvantage, greatest reward or risk to their highest values. So their highest values is filtering their reality and helping them make decisions and take actions. So if they set a goal that's not highest on their value, that's lower, they are setting up sort of a fantasy for themselves, an unrealistic expectation. And in response to that, they have what I call the ABCDs of negativity. They end up a little angry at themselves and aggressive towards themselves. They end up blaming themselves and feel like they betrayed themselves. They criticize and challenge themselves, and they feel despaired and depressed because they're not setting things that they will follow through on. So anytime you're setting a goal that's way lower on the value list, you have the ABCDs of negativity as a feedback mechanism to guide you back to setting goals that are authentic and real, that are truly inspiring to you. So really, the negative feelings that we have towards ourselves, the self-depreciation, is actually a feedback trying to guide us back to being authentic. So in either case, it's trying to get us back to being our real self and set goals that are priorities. Anytime we fill our day with high priority actions that inspire us, it doesn't fill up with low priority distractions that don't. And that's the way to master your life.
Mid-career crisis. Well, what's your thoughts regarding?
Well, many people, starting at age around 1, when you're from 0 to 1, when you're first born all the way through your first year, it's very probable that your parents and the people around you are going to pretty well allow you to do anything. So if you vomit on them, if you make noise, if you scream or you throw things or whatever, they kind of let it go. But around age 1, and you start to stand up and become autonomous, your parents start saying no. They're not terrible too, as they call it. So what happens is the natural desires to do things that are important to you all of a sudden are edited. And so you learn how to socialize and fit into society and try to do things that help other people too. But in the process of doing it, some of your own ambitions and drives start to get curtailed. And you go through life subordinating to mothers and fathers and preachers and teachers and eventually peer pressures. And so trying to find a junction and an integration between what other people are expecting and projecting onto you and your own drives and dreams is the paradox. So by the time we hit 40s or 50s, sometimes in the 30s, but usually 40s or 50s, the people that we once subordinated to are now our age. We're at that age. So we start to liberate ourselves from that and decide what is it we really want to do in life, what's really important to us. And so we have the midlife crisis and say, you know what? I really want to spend my life, I want to be autonomous, and I want to be true to myself. And you give yourself permission to be autonomous and be an original thinker, possibly. And so that's a changing point for many people. And in the process of doing it, they sometimes go back into the shell and give up on it if they don't feel that they have a path that they can do. But hopefully that they have clarity and they prioritize their life and start to do things that are most meaningful and prioritized, and learn to delegate lower priority things so they can get on to doing things that inspire them, that produce the most and accomplish the most and have the most fulfillment in life. And this happens around that age for most people.
I was very interested in asking how we can mentally reduce our age and feel younger. How do we do that?
Well, I think that we have two different aspects to our psyche. If we call it future and past. So we can live in our imagination and with intentions of the future. We can live with our retentions and memories of the past. And once we add time into our mind, we create the arrow of time. And the arrow of time comes with it entropy, the tendency to break down. So anytime we're holding on to memories of the past or holding on to fantasies of the future, nightmares of the past, fantasies of the future, fear of the future, guilt of the past, shame of the past, fantasies of the future. Anytime we're living in the time zone, we're automatically in the aging process. But once we actually get really present and set really balanced goals that are not emotionally distracting, we get present and we go into a zone where there's no time. Deepak Chopra said it nicely when he said that there's a timeless mind, ageless body. So the thing that stores the thing that we do when we store our memories and imaginations, we store emotional illusions. Give me an example. If you're infatuated with somebody, they occupy space and time in your mind. And you store them in a memory, and you create a fantasy about being with them again, possibly, if you're infatuated. Again, past and future. If you resent somebody and you put them in the pit, again, they occupy space and time in your mind, and you store it in a memory of that resentful experience, and you create a fantasy of them being something different next time, or you hold on to a memory and fear the future. As long as you're holding memory and imagination, as long as you're storing these emotions in those states, you're aging. We call it emotional baggage. But the second we actually get to a point where we don't see resentment of the past, we don't see infatuation of the future, but we balance our equation and have equanimity within ourselves and equity between ourselves and others, and have appreciation and love for the person, we dissolve the fabric of space-time in our minds, and we clear out our memory and imagination, just become present. In that state of gratitude and love, we have a timeless mind, ageless body. We're present. That's where we actually slow down the aging process or stop the aging process in those moments. So the more moments we have of gratitude and love for ourselves and others, just so that we slow down the aging process. The more we have emotional baggage, the more we speed up the aging process. We've all had moments of extreme emotions and looked in the mirror the next day, and we can see the aging going on right there. So the key is to be present and to be purposeful and to be grateful. Now, that ties in with values. When you live by your highest values, you have more resilience to adapt to pairs of opposites, and you have more objectivity and more even-mindedness, and you're more present. When you're living by lower values, because you're unfulfilled, you'll tend to want to avoid a pain and seek a pleasure and get the amygdala going on and get into time. And we then store those as memory and imagination. That automatically ages our body. So our physiology is creating symptoms as a feedback mechanism to try to get us back to objectivity and to live by our highest values and be inspired by our life. So I always say that symptoms can be our friends if they're interpreted through meaning, and they can be our enemies if we keep striving for a one-sided world and not appreciating the balance life has to offer.
If you're interested in working with me, contributing to the magazine, maybe speaking at any of our many events around the world, partnering or licensing The Best You, go to www.thebestyou.co. Talking about time, how does one manage time? I mean, I think kind of the amount of things that you do, how much you travel and how prolific you are, but what's the best way of somebody managing time?
Well, I don't know if we ever manage time. I think we manage our actions in time because we all have the same amount of time. We call it time management, but it's really our activity management. If a person was to sit down and write down everything that they do in a day and make a comprehensive list of everything that they do in a day within possibly a month, each days of the month, what do they do? And then next to it, put down another column next to it, what is the productivity per hour? How much does it produce per hour economically? And next to that, another column that's how much meaning of inspiration does it provide? And next to that, what is the cost of replacement? If I was to delegate it to somebody, what would I have to pay to have them do that? And next to that, another column is how much time is spent. If we put those 4 columns together against all the things that we do in a day, we'll find out that in most cases, most people that are less productive are doing low priority things. They're majoring in minors and minoring in majors. They're doing less priority things and not the most productive or most meaningful things. But by going through and doing an inventory of that and identifying what really produces economically and what is really meaningful, usually the thing that produces is something that serves others. What's meaningful, it serves ourselves. Finding a balance of those meaningfulness as in the things that are most productive allows us to earn more income to delegate to lower priority activities. Once we delegate to lower priority activities, we get way more done. We feel way more fulfilled. We have a greater self-worth and net worth. And we're able to free ourselves up for creative thinking with the executive center in our brain instead of having to live in frustrations with our amygdala. So we actually activate our angelic mind, as I call it, instead of our animal mind. This is the most productive and most powerful day we can make. So prioritizing our day every day and living by high priorities is key. Parkinson's law states that if we don't fill our day with high priority actions that inspire us, it's going to keep filling up with low priority distractions that don't.
One of the subjects you talk about is the truth of brainwashing. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I guess each person would have a different idea what brainwashing is. If somebody has distorted perceptions and they're highly emotional and they're ignorant of the other side of the equation of the perception, they are probably filling up with brain noise and a lot of emotional baggage. If somebody was to go in there and bring balance to that perception and even it out and bring equanimity to the mind, that could be washing the mind of all the illusions. If that's the case, then that would be washing the brain of its brain noise. But other people think of brainwashing as adding to that. They're actually putting in those biases and putting in those distortions. So it depends on the angle and what you're perceiving it as. I'd like to say that I'd rather wash my brain out of all the delusions and the things that distract me from what is inspiring to me. But some people like to think of putting that in is the brainwashing. So it depends on the perspective.
And I know key word for you is inspiration, not necessarily motivation. So tell me about where does inspiration come from?
Well, whenever you're setting goals that are aligned to your highest values, the things that are most priority, most important to you, you're spontaneously inspired from within, like a calling from within to act. Nobody has to ever remind me or motivate me or incentivize me to get up and research and write every day and to teach every day. I love doing that. I can't wait to do it. And whenever you're doing things that are high in your values, you can't wait to do it. And when you can't wait to do something that inspires you, people can't wait to get your inspiration. But whenever you're doing something lower on your values, because you'll procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate in doing it in comparison to the higher values, you'll need motivation and drive and incentives to get you to do it. And you're more avoiding pain and seeking pleasure in that mode. So I always say I'd rather fill my day with inspirations than have to live my life through having to be motivated from the outside. Motivation is a symptom, never a solution. Inspiration is the fulfillment of life.
But is it not difficult for people that maybe have just kind of like a mundane job? Is it not difficult sometimes maybe for them to find inspiration if they're just trying to bring a living in?
Actually, if they have never taken the time to identify the job description that they have and identify what's really truly high on their value, and then identify how specifically those activities are going to help them fulfill their highest value, they're going to have a mundane job. But it's never what happens to them. It's never what they're going through. It's their perception of it. William James, the father of modern psychology, said that the greatest discovery of his generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. So if we take the time and ask the simple question, how specifically is the job duty I'm doing right now going to help me fulfill what is most meaningful, most inspiring, my highest priority, my highest value in my life, my purpose in life? If I ask that question and don't give myself excuses for not answering it and just keep asking and answering that question over and over again, eventually my mind will see the blessing in it and see things on the way, not in the way. And the same job that seemed to be mundane is now inspiring. And the more you become engaged and the more you be fulfilled in the job. And when you're doing something that's meaningful, you look forward to the job and you're not trying to escape it with tea and coffee and internet distractions or spectators, things, or etc. and you're engaged. You're more productive. You get more promotions, more opportunities, and you're more likely to get more income and eventually more entrepreneurial opportunities. So I always say it's never the job, it's the perception of the job. I developed a system to help people who are in a job that they don't feel inspired by in a matter of 2 or 3 hours doing a little exercise of asking that question. And they're now all of a sudden engaged in that job. So it's not the job, it's the perception of the job. I could take any job and I could turn it into something they can be thankful for.
Conquering life's 7 fears. Can you tell me about that, please?
Well, I divide life into 7 areas. People have done it into 6, 8, 10 different areas, but I like to think of it, we have a spiritual quest for our inspirations, our mission in life. We have a mental quest for waking our genius and our capacities to have a great mind. We have a business quest or a vocational quest for going out and making a service to the world that's achieving. We have a financial quest for financial independence. We have a family quest for love and intimacy. And we have a social quest for influence and leadership, and a physical health and well-being quest for vitality and beauty. All of those are the 7 areas of life, but with that comes the 7 fears of life. The fear of breaking the morals and ethics of some spiritual authority, the fear of not being smart enough or intelligent enough or degreed enough, the fear of somehow failing and not succeeding, the fear of losing money or not making money, the fear of losing loved ones or the respect of loved ones, the fear of somehow not having influence and being rejected by society, and the fear of ill health, death, or disease, or not being beautiful enough. Those 7 fears are derived from subordination to other people that we think have more in those areas than we do. So the second we think somebody's more intelligent than us and we feel intimidated by it and we minimize ourselves, we have the fear of being around that person because they're intelligent. The second we subordinate ourselves to somebody that we think's got more success than us, we'll minimize ourselves and again have the fear of being around that and feel the failure. But if we're not subordinating to other people and just living by our own highest priorities, we tend to empower those areas. So we have the capacity to empower all 7 areas, and any area of our life we don't empower, we'll tend to be overpowered by those people we subordinate to. So the 7 fears are actually the 7 subordinations to people we think have more than us. And we're not here to live in their shadows. We're here to stand on their shoulders and recognize within us where we have what we see in them. Once we realize we have what we see in them, we stand on their shoulders and go to bigger horizons.
Nowadays, people that are either looking at reinventing themselves, finding a new job, or people just coming out of university, it's a very massive generalization here. But what do you think the best assets that people could or should have?
Well, I think that because everybody has a unique set of priorities and values in life, they're going to excel in the areas of their highest values and develop talents and learning and skills and knowledge in that area. And identifying what that area is where your genius is, your creativity is, where your novelty and resiliency is. That's where you have the greatest potential and power. And you have the greatest advantage there. Ricardo's greatest advantage. Each society has it, but each individual has it according to their highest values. Finding out what that is the first step. Going through a value determination process, looking at how you spend your time, looking at what you fill your space with, what energizes you, what your money is being primarily spent on, what is it that you have the most order in your life, where you have the most discipline, what you think, visualize, and affirm about most that's coming true, what do you love conversing about, what inspires you, what are your most consistent goals that are coming true, and what is it you love learning about most. If you look carefully at those 13 criteria and look at what stands out most in those answers, you'll find out what is the area that you'll excel at. Capitalizing and finding on that is the first step. And then orchestrating and prioritizing and structuring your life so you can live by the highest priorities on a daily basis. This empowers you and gives you the competitive advantage that most people are looking for. Many people subordinate to the influence of other people, try to be somebody they're not, live in the shadows of other people, envy them, imitate them, lose their identity, and wonder why they're not empowered. So the key is being authentic and unique to yourself. By doing that, we make the biggest difference because we're unique. And by doing that, also, we'll get ridiculed and maybe even opposed at first, but eventually will become self-evident because we're authentic. And this is where our power is. And what that is, I don't know, because each person is different. Some people are dedicated to family development, some into social causes, some into intellectual pursuits, some into business and entrepreneurship, some into spiritual quest, some into physical fitness. Whatever it is, if they find out what their area of expertise is, their highest value, that's where they're going to excel.
To find out more about our latest projects, get a free coaching lesson, or download my book, go to www.bernardo-moya.com. I come across a lot of people in life who maybe think it's too late. I'm 50, I'm 60. It's too late for me. What's your thoughts regarding that?
I would get on the internet and I would look for the most successful elderly people on the planet and find out when they started their businesses and started their lives and careers. I think there's a 97-year-old woman that just ran a marathon and won the marathon. I think there's people that start businesses in their 60s and 70s. Maybe I'll share a story. I was speaking in Dallas, Texas, and I was doing the Breakthrough Experience, which is my key signature program that I do around the world. And there was a gentleman, 72 years old, that was there and attending. And I was asking people to write down what they would love to dedicate their life to from now on and what things that they know with certainty they'd like to accomplish. I don't want speculations. I don't want fantasies. I want things that your life has demonstrated is truly important to you, that you're really committed to, that you're willing to do. Because it's wise to start with what you know and let what you know grow. So everybody was writing in the room except this one man. And he was just sitting there. And I walked over to him and I said, so what's going on? Why are you not writing? And he said, well, this is good for people in their 40s and 50s and maybe their 60s, but I'm 72. I retired 7 years ago, and I've done all that. And I said to him, well, there's nothing wrong with retirement as long as it doesn't get away with your mission. And people that retire, very commonly, if they have nothing to live for, they die. They only live about 18 months afterwards. I said, so if you're deteriorating, it may be because you don't have something to live for. So let's take a look at what you're really committed to doing. And if you were to die tomorrow, what would be left undone? And if you could go back and write a posthumous biography about you 1,000 years from now, what would you want it to write? What would you want it to say? And have you really done your greatest contribution? Or have you thrown away the talents that you've accumulated over your life? Anyway, I kind of confronted the guy. And he all of a sudden, I also said to him, I said, I guarantee you when you retire, you have been living in a fantasy. When you get there, you'll be all fun. And your wife's been having that fantasy. But now you're there, you're probably killing each other at home. And he goes, that's the truth. I said, so what does he really want to dedicate your life to now? You got possibly 10, 20, maybe 30 years still going in your life. What is it you're going to do? And anyway, he says, you're a persistent little young booger, aren't you? And I said, I am. And he said, all right. So he started writing things down. And all of a sudden he got teary-eyed. And he got something that it really meant something to him. And anyway, I finished the seminar and I shook his hand and even gave him a pat and a hug on them at the time when I left. And I didn't see him for 3 months. And I was back in Dallas, Texas, which is where he was. And I was speaking to a conference of about 1,200 people. In the back of the conference at the very end, he walked in with a buddy of his. And they waited until I was finished signing books and hugging and taking pictures and stuff. At the very end, he comes up to me with his buddy. And I shook his hand. He was dressed immaculately. He looked great. And he said, I want to thank you, young man. And I said, why is that? He says, I started a new business. I'm a consultant now. I'm helping young people build their businesses. I'm with my partner here. He decided, hell with this retirement stuff too. And he says, we're back in business again. We feel younger. We feel vital. We feel alive again. My wife is more appreciative. I want to thank you for that breakthrough experience because it was a breakthrough for me. I didn't think I was going to get that from my program, but I can tell you right now, that's probably that saved my life and probably add years to life and life to years. So I always say that it doesn't matter what your age is. It doesn't matter what you've been through or gone through, what you're going through. What matters is do you have a dream? And I don't think a dream really matters about age. I think a dream can be inspiring to somebody. I was on the way here, and in the car service that brought us here, I was discussing a gentleman who lives on my ship. And I have a ship that I live on, and this gentleman also lives on there. And he is way up in age, 105 years old. And every day he's doing something meaningful, and he's working on projects. He's doing investments, and he's sending out comical things to people, and he's running a business, and he's doing things 105. And he's more alive than most people in their 60s today. So I always say that it's not about chronological age, it's about psychological age. And if you live youthful and you live with a vision and a mission that lives long, your physical body will do amazing things. In fact, if you're doing something that is inspiring to you, that's highest on your values, where you have the greatest resilience and objectivity, you live by what I call the telos, and you activate the telencephalon, the executive center, which is creative, envisioning, and is executing. And you also add to the telomeres because you're less stressed. And the telomeres get longer, and you end up living longer. So you're literally, if you have a reason to live longer, your body will get you there.
You talk about the breakthrough experience. I'm very interested in knowing, what can somebody expect if they attend the breakthrough experience?
Well, I've been blessed to do the breakthrough experience now for 26 years. And I've done it about 40 plus times every year. I think I've done it 1,050 times or something like that. And I can't think of anything else that I love doing more than that program, because it helps people break through whatever it is that's got them stuck. It could be in their business. It could be in their finances. It could be in their relationship. It could be in their social effects. It could be their health. It could be their inspirational, spiritual pathway. It could be their intellectual pursuits. I don't know what I'm going to face when I'm in there. All I know is that I'm dedicated to helping people break through whatever is in their way so they can make it on the way, so they can then go out and do something extraordinary with their life. Because I really believe that we're destined to do something amazing in our life, and we hold it back because we keep subordinating to other people and trying to live our lives through other people instead of live our lives fully by ourselves. And I don't mean not interact with people, but learning to be ourselves and share our uniqueness with the world in a way that it serves people. And so the breakthrough experience is about that. I teach people tools on how to dissolve emotional baggage, how to get clear about the mission, how to prioritize their life, how to structure and strategically delegate lower priority things so they can live inspired. And I show them how not to subordinate to other people and how to basically manifest the things they want to manifest in their life by living by priority. So it's more than I can say in words. It's an experience. It goes from about 8 in the morning till about midnight and goes around from about 9 in the morning till about 7:30 at night. It's full on 24, 25 hours of intense exploration of how to master your life. And I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing. That's why I do it every weekend.
Thank you very much. John, many years from now, what would you like your legacy to be?
Well, I have a book. I think I showed it to you last time we had a meeting.
Yeah.
It's a series of volumes, but it's got all my goals, all my objectives that I want to meet in each of these 7 areas. And I want to make a contribution in each area. I want to make a contribution to education, which is inspiring. I just had a meeting the other day with somebody from the National Institute of Health that they're looking at possibly putting together a project that we can do for 20 million children in America. And we're doing things also in other countries with education. I want to make and help children wake up their genius and allow them to live according to their own highest values and link all of the things they study to their highest values so they can be expanded and go and do something amazing with their knowledge. I want to make a difference in business and worked on business modules and business systems to help people more effectively and efficiently be engaged at work so they can actually be inspired by their work. Because I think if you're not inspired by your work, you're missing out on life. Because one of the greatest contributions we have is the fulfillment of making a difference in other people's life through service. So I wanted to make a difference there. I also want to do something in economics. I put economic models together to try to help people build their wealth. Because I always say that if you're poor, it's because you're not caring about humanity and not caring enough to take your talents and bringing it out and serving people with that, which is very fulfilling. And you get rewarded by serving people. So if you really want to have wealth in life, you got to be willing to serve vast numbers of people and care about humanity. So I want to help build people's wealth in their life and build systems to help them do that. And I also want to do something in family dynamics because people want to be loved and appreciated for who they are, and they're not communicating in each other's values. They're projecting values onto each other and expecting other people to live in their values instead of learning the art of communicating with a win-win kind of dynamic. So I've developed systems on how to help people in communicating in families and appreciating kids and how to dissolve baggage that accumulates before it gets so far where you throw in the towel. I also want to make a difference in leadership. So I do leadership conferences, as you know, around the world and help people live congruently and authentically according to their highest values. They have the less corruption inside their life. They have the less distraction, and they're more inspired and they're more authentic by doing so. And by exemplification, we're the greatest teacher, and that true is leadership. The word governmentus actually means one who can govern their own mind. The executive center comes online, we govern ourselves. I'm interested in helping people live masterfully and authentically according to their highest values so they can do inspired leadership. And physically, which is where I started in the field of healthcare, I wanted to develop systems. I wrote a textbook on 1,000 health conditions and the psychology underlying them. Because I really believe that the autonomic nervous system mediates the expression of all of our misperceptions in life and give us feedback through symptoms to try to live authentically and live with gratitude and love. So I've developed systems on healthcare, and we're implementing that in different health fields. And I wanted to make a contribution there. So I had a dream of making a contribution in each of the 7 areas of life and to do as much as I could within my body possibility. And at the end of my life, I want to be able to say, when I asked myself, did I do everything I could with everything I was given? I want to be able to say I did it. I want to be able to do something that inspires other people to do the same with their life.
And I think if anybody can, John, it's definitely you. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching Inspiring People. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.